What time is it? It's time for another Every Other Wednesday.
I know.
All right, should we get this?
We should get this train started. Woot woot. How lame was that? Hello, hello. We're ready to go. Richard's face is here, but he will not be joining us. Welcome, everybody, to another Every Other Wednesday. We have a very special guest, Lori Power, which we will get to shortly. My name is Michael Kerr, coming to you from beautiful, spectacular Canmore, Alberta, in the Canadian Rockies. Sanjay, tell us about you quickly.
My name is Sanjay Nath, and I live just outside of Toronto in Oakville, Ontario. And someone, Carol, was actually asking about my facial hair. I did miss a spot shaving, and I'm trying to grow a rally beard and I'm hoping, I don't know if I'm going to last, but my hope is to bush out and look like Santa Claus and then shave it in the new year with hopes of a new beginning and COVID behind us and all that.
Oh, it could be your COVID beard. You keep
it's like
growing it until yes.
Yeah, yes. I want to get to the finals and then be done and then move on. So.
My brother-in-law grew a COVID beard, and it has come. He's never had a beard in his life, and it is out like about this friggin' wide. It just looks like
ZZ Top or ZZ Top.
Yeah. And Lori, welcome again back to the old show.
Back again.
Please introduce yourself.
Well, thanks for having me. It's Lori Power from MP Benefits, and I am a group benefit consultant. My question to you, Sanjay, is that your beard actually is like rings in a stump of a tree. You can tell how young you are by the lack of grayness in there. So well
hold
done.
On. You know what? First of all, there are grays in there, and I'd like to point out that I'm closer to 50 than any other major number, and I'm. The closest perfect square I am is 49, and the closest prime number I am to is 47. And
so are you trying to tell us you're 48?
No, not quite.
No.
What you're saying is that you have great genes, no gray.
There you go. I got some gray in there. It's just if you do what you love, and you know what, I'm tying this into culture. But you'll find that people who tend to get stressed out more from work or relationships or physically or whatever age quicker. That's always been my belief. And I've never had a job in my life. I can't hold my liquor. I can't hold women. I have no stress. So that's why.
No stress.
See, now I blame all of my gray on my kids. I think that was, the key. If you have kids, they get the blame.
That's why you have kids. Who else can we blame?
I have three boys at that. So
there you go. And what's this about kids blaming their parents for everything? Come on, give me a break. It's the other way around.
Exactly.
I'm living the dream.
Hey, so Lori, thank you for joining us. So do you have usually our guests come on because they have a movie coming out that they're promoting. Is that the case with you? Do you have a movie coming out that you're watching?
It's a documentary. It's how to start an amusement park in a snowstorm.
Excellent. Very good. Very good response. So folks, we invited Lori here once again because she's a wealth of knowledge and information and thoughtful comments about everything workplace culture related. And we wanted to circle back to this topic of transitioning back to the workplace. I know a lot of my clients I've spoken to the last few weeks, they're still mostly working remotely, but some of them are starting slowly to come back to the office. I know it's probably moving a lot faster in the States. In fact, why don't we start with a poll question? Let's launch this poll question just to see where our small contingent is at these days. What percentage of your organization's workforce is currently still working remotely, virtually? If you could answer, please. The votes are coming in fast and furious. I forgot my voting music.
You can sing.
I could sing. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. All
right. Don't do the extended version.
All right. I'm gonna end the poll going once, going twice, going three times. Let's share the results. Here we go. So
it's pretty even across the board.
Yeah, it's very distributed. So 15% nobody's working remotely. 12%, 100% still are, and then pretty evenly distributed, hey, with different ranges in between. So everybody's kind of in a different situation here. A lot of people doing hybrid. I wonder how many how many folks are going to continue to do hybrid into the future? But let's talk about this. So Lori, what are you seeing out there in your work in the world of work? Are you seeing that organizations can't wait to get back to in-person offices for the most part, or are they going to try and make a hybrid remote workplace work? What are you seeing?
You know, I had the best conversation this morning. I had an opportunity to talk to somebody from Portugal, somebody from and a leader, a cultural leader here in Canada. And the one thing that they both agreed on was this word back. And they said, you know what, we're leaders. Since when is it part of the entrepreneur experience to go back? You know, we are where we are. And I think you have said it best in this room many, many times. You start where you are and you move forward. And I'm seeing a lot of folks now start to talk about this is where we are and let's move forward from here. So it may not be whether it's mandated or whether you can or you can't. It's having that conversation to say what's most effective, what's most productive, and what's more economical, feasible from working where you are, as opposed to having, like we have been this week, going through a snowstorm. Is it really a good use of your time to be, you know, an hour in your car with road rage to get to where you are going to work physically at the office? Or can you accomplish what you need to do where you are right now because you're used to that? So this is where I think the conversation is getting really interesting.
So Leona is pointing out that as a healthcare organization, the front line is definitely working overtime, and they've never really worked from home. And again, depending on where you are in that spectrum, some people don't have that option, and they've been out there. In fact, I was chatting with a client last week, and they were in power generation, and a lot of the frontline workers are frontline, maybe not interacting with people, but they never got time off. But it's the admin, it's the HR, it's the office people who are now starting to trickle back. Yeah. And to your point, Lori, this idea of it is an economical decision, as well as a cultural decision, as well as a staffing decision. There are so many pieces. I was chatting with a lawyer friend who said, and now this was about 6 months, maybe a year ago, and they may have changed their mind, but they're like, we love this. They said our organization, who was renting a building downtown, said, we're not going back to that building. They're going to save $10 million a month in rent. Right? So there's a significant economical driver to potentially do or not do that. But at the same time, too, if people don't like working in their home, or they go crazier by doing that, and then you become less productive, then all of a sudden you kind of revisit that and go, wait a minute, maybe this spending the 10 million increases our productivity by 20 million. So it's still, there are all these factors, and there's so many moving parts. It's just not that clear cut.
No, it isn't. And it comes down to that communication piece. How are we communicating with our key staff, our team leads, to say, where is it going to work effectively and where is it not? And you pointed out a really good opportunity there. That's what I see as an opportunity. I know Lisa's on the call, and she and I exhaust this conversation is, where is the opportunity to test your employees to see where they're going to be more productive? Are they going to be more productive in a space? And it may not be that space downtown. You may not need 10,000 square feet. You may only need 5,000 square feet. And so there's tons of choices. And I think that's exciting for businesses, whether they have had remote staff or in-person staff, because the way the customers are coming to us now are different.
Yeah, I love that, Lori. I love the whole focus on, let's look at this as a great opportunity. Let's learn to be, and if we've learned one of many, many things, I think it's the importance and the need to be flexible like never before, that one size fits all solutions are not going to work. So yeah, there's some really cool opportunities here. And by the way, before I forget, the lovely and talented Richard Haddon, who's face you see here is traveling. So he's in an airport right now, so he could not join us today, nor could the lovely and talented Jeff Tobe, who I believe is stuck in a snowstorm in Siberia, I want to say. Could be Idaho, could be Siberia. I don't know.
He's in Idaho. He's in a snowstorm in Idaho. That's
Okay.
that was his claim.
Sure, he's somewhere. Anyways, we wish them safe travels. And by the way, speaking of weather too, my heart goes out to the folks from BC, British Columbia, Washington State that are dealing with a devastating, unprecedented flooding. It just sounds like things have gotten even worse in some situations this morning. So my heart goes out to everybody wrestling with that. Oh, man. Another good reason to, adapt to working from home.
and by the way, too, again, talk about those choices. When you look at new business models will emerge, as well as other ones that are existing will grow. Like this whole idea of renting office space, right? So like you were saying, Lori, instead of having 10,000 square feet, again, there's the Canadian versus American thing. Everyone else would say,
what is this feet you speak of? Feet?
So instead of 10,000 square feet, their core staff will be 3,000 or 5,000, and then they're gonna have these meeting spaces that they're gonna do an office share with, or they're gonna rent as needed, and that has already been around for years. But I think it's gonna be that on steroids moving forward, because people are gonna become more efficient because they kind of need to be.
Yeah.
There's so much opportunity to use the technology, whether like you say about the isolation carries some weight as well. But there are so many opportunities now in technology. We've got companies coming out that have those team pods, right? That you can go into a space like this with your team to specifically interact and get the job done. There's so many ways to utilize to the best advantage of your best employee, who is key to your best client.
Yeah. Perfect.
Also, I want to point out a friend of mine who has young kids who just started school during COVID, and I was saying, how are the kids liking wearing the mask? And he's like, they don't know differently. As far as they're concerned, you wear a mask when you go to school. That's part of the garb. It's like wearing clothes. You don't go naked, right? And so, and I'm obviously saying that tongue in cheek, but my point is, when you look at culture and interactivity, and if someone is new to the workforce 2 years ago, and they've only done online and connectivity, they're going to still feel a sense of belonging, a different form than if you had 30 years of experience of going to coffee every day with your cube mate, your cubicle mate. But it's people will learn to adapt, and we have to understand too, we keep comparing it to what we did know or what we thought, and we keep trying to hold on to that and we want to go back to that because that's normal. Well, it was normal for then, but again, the cliche, then what is the new normal? And it's true, because there will be a new normal, and there will be the elements of what we had will still always be there. Connectivity, trust, communication, those will always be there. The form in which we execute them will change based on technology, based on COVID, based on size, environment, rain floods, and mudslides.
Yeah, and yeah, thanks, Sanjay. And we pointed this out before on the old program that a lot of this is still relatively short term, right? In other words, we don't know a lot of things yet. We're not going to know maybe for another 5 years how some of these factors are going to play out. So people, for example, concerned about, is social isolation going to have a negative impact? And I think in some ways it's too early to tell in some cases whether that will be the case. It may be in some cases.
I'm going to chime in what Carol said here and get you guys' comments. It says, is it healthy to have no separation between home and office, especially if your living space isn't large enough to have separate rooms set aside? What are you guys' takes on that?
Well, and that's what I'm saying. This is where the key opportunity for you both, and Richard as well, always talk communication. So here is that opportunity for any of the owners, the team leads, to have those conversations and have the ability to take those employees that are not coping and put them into that sphere. But there are employees as well that do have dedicated spaces, that do work really well at home, and they don't want to be hit with the stick and say, I have to come back, because then you're just adding into that great resignation. They're going to go where they're going to be able to accommodate their work life that they have now set into practice. So the opportunity is there for any employer, whether you have remote staff or in-person staff, to really do that assessment, go deep on that conversation with each individual and see what's going to work for them and be able to accommodate that.
Yeah. And I know people, I have friends who work for larger organizations who have known nothing different. They've worked from their home for the last 20 years. So forget about the pandemic and recent times here. They don't know anything different. They would hate to now go back into an office because that's what they want to do. One question I always circle back to when I'm talking to clients who are wrestling with these issues is being clear on your why. And if you can't, and I hear that from CEOs, from leaders, where they'll say, well, we want everybody has to come back to the workplace. And my first question is, well, are you clear why that's important? Do you have a good why? Because your employees, if somebody is in that case where they've got it figured out, they prefer working from home, they're more productive working from home, their mental health is better, they're happier, everything's better working from home, they're going to ask the question, why do I have to come into the office if this is working for me, right?
Yeah, and again, it's about fit. And I think of kids in online school. There's some kids who thrive in online schooling, and the other, it's the worst thing in the world for them. It is not about online schooling. It's about your personality. Is it a fit for that particular job or that particular ability to work from home or not? Some great conversations going on here in the chat box. This idea of it's important to create a ritual or to make the differentiation. Stephen suggested that, he is saying that, change your clothes at the end of the day. And that's kind of your ritual. Let's shift your brain from one to the other. And then I think it was Lisa that said, or take a walk around the block in the morning and call that your commute. And that makes a physical transition from I'm in home mode versus I'm in work mode. At the same time, too,
you remember how Natasha had pointed out, and you did as well, Michael. It was funny, you guys came from two ends, but it was a bookend. How do I start my day and how do I end my day? And if we take that cultural moment and be able to lead through example of saying to your team to say, this is our challenge to you this month. This is find new ways to start your day, and then tell us how you started your day, and then find ways to bookend that and end your day, and let's report back on that. What an excellent cultural moment.
For sure. That's a great topic. I just go sit in my car for 5 minutes at the start in my driveway, start and end of every day. Go sit there for a few minutes.
I just nap because I nap at work, I nap at home, so it helps me.
Hey, so shift the topic here slightly, Lori. What are you hearing about the quote unquote great resignation? Is that panning out the way people were fearing it would? And also this notion, now I'm reading more and more about the boomerang employees. So this speculation that a lot of employees who have quit, who are going to quit, will come back after a few months or 6 months, because
there's such a mixed bag out there, isn't there? Like you have a lot of people hitting a big tambourine to say that you must fire people. I mean, we're hearing that, like you got to get rid of people. And then you have this is the big resignation. And then you have other people that say, don't worry about that, they're going to come back. Well, I don't think they're going to just come back. I think if you've lost your best earner, you're going to have to work to get that person back. So boy, it's all over the place. What about you guys? What are you seeing when you're thinking about this resignation? Because the stuff that I'm reading on a day-to-day basis and the people I'm talking to, it's like, whew, we don't know which way to turn.
Yeah, and I think that's a good summary. Nobody knows, and it varies geographically, it varies by industry. I think the issues vary. Certainly what I'm hearing and reading, there's a lot of people that are making the call because of the pandemic. They've just decided to reassess their lives and their priorities and their values. and they've made the call that, we've decided, we've talked, if they're in a couple situation, I've talked with my partner and decided that, we can survive on one income, and we don't want the stress and the hour-and-a-half commute each way that we used to put up with. So we're going to make this work in a different way, or I'm going to look for a part-time job, or I'm going to look for something that is less stressful, less of an impact on my health. And we're still seeing, it goes back to the fundamental basics of culture, because still in a lot of the surveys I'm reading, why are people saying they're going to quit or are quitting? Because they feel a lack of connection to a sense of purpose in their job, a sense of meaning in their job. They don't feel valued, respected, appreciated by their employers. So it goes back to those fundamental issues.
Well, we're seeing a really big rise in the gig economy as well. That is a result, is you're seeing a lot more people make those choices and participating in that gig economy. Sorry about that, Sanjay, go ahead.
No, just saying that all patterns serve us until they don't. And what I mean by that is we were chugging along, and then this thing COVID hit, and then the pattern completely changed the course of everything. And so if we look at where we are right now, whether it's the Great Resignation or people coming back or people quitting or not being able to find employees, like at the current, when I was doing my master's, our professor said this, which mathematically was very correct, and it's very tongue in cheek, but he used to say, in the late 80s, if you looked at the rate at which Elvis impersonators was growing, by the year 1998, 1 in 3 people in the world would be an Elvis impersonator. and so mathematically, what we
you mean they're not? I've got an Elvis impersonator right over my shoulder here. What are you talking about?
So the point being that that was the trajectory we were on, and it was legit. But the problem is, as you go down that pattern, it will go until something changes. And what's going to change? I don't know, technology. So right now, people are going, we can live off one income. Great. But then all of a sudden, when they look over and they're keeping up with the Joneses, and the Joneses got a Tesla, and they want a Tesla, they go, well, you know what? I'm feeling a little bored. And it goes back to this why. And if the why can be a very superficial one, it can be a very Zen one, and it can be everything in between. It's because I want to get a really expensive haircut, or I want to be able to send my great grandkids to university, or whatever it is. But then people will change their drivers. And when they ask that why, the drivers change, and then the drivers change the actions, because what they were okay with before, because it was COVID and we're supposed to stay close, all of a sudden everything opens up, and 5 months from now, people are like, no, that's what I wanted 5 months ago. That's no longer what I want. I want to go to the chat because there's all kinds of discussions here, and I can't even keep up with it.
Well, Sanjay, I was going to mention, Natasha talks about, and hey, congratulations, Natasha, on your company's award. That's very cool. We'll get you back on the show to talk about that. But she talks about how it's a lovely balance, and I think that's a great thing for us to focus on too as we move forward. Is how can we provide our employees, how can we create a culture with better balance, where again comes back to that flexibility, giving people the choice, where if you can make it work, where I kind of want to go into the office, but I don't want to go in when it's snowing. So if I have the flexibility to work from home on those days, please give it to me. Maybe I don't want to go in 5 days a week. Can I go in 3 days a week? And can we make this work? Even you and I, Sanjay, as speakers, right? I mean, I had 4 keynotes in the last 4 days without leaving this room. And there's something kind of nice about that, as opposed to the old days when I could be on a plane, 5 days a week. And so I'd like to return to a kind of balance that's a little more sane with my travel.
Well, you did it in a scuba suit too. So
that's true.
Done.
I did one in a scuba suit.
But back quickly to your point, Sanjay, and both of you and Richard as well speak about this a lot. If you have created that culture, in my opinion, if you have created that culture and you have answered that why, and your employees believe in that as much as they do today, I don't think it matters whether, you're absolutely right, whether they're in person or they're remote. If everybody's there, then that Great Resignation, you're laughing, you're getting back to the ass, you're laughing your ass off all the way to the bank, because that Great Resignation does not impact you.
Right.
Anna, going back even earlier, Anna says, if you have a team if you have half the team that's able to work remotely, example, a marketing team, and half who must come in, example, security, what ideas do you have for compensating people for traveling to work, please? free lunch, but more than that, and keeping in mind the impact on budget as a company not flush with funds. So any ideas or thoughts around that?
I have a great client. I do a lot in the trades. And one of these, as part of their culture in the last year, what they do is they provide a gas card. And they go, you know what, we appreciate you coming into work. So here is your monthly gas card. And, you know, for everybody who's coming in, and they do have split staff, and it's working really well. They're growing now. The employees are chatting it up, and it's just one avenue to meet that convenience.
So Lori, on that note, it reminds me of what you and I were talking about before in talking about this program and the topic, the reverse and the laws that's coming out in Portugal, for example, where they're talking about, well, first of all, they're talking about or I think they did pass the law, right? Where employers are not allowed to communicate with their employees who are working remotely after that employee's traditional workplace hours. And that's perhaps fraught with some challenges and issues, but also the issue of compensation. So people working from home. Well, is my company going to pay for a portion of my internet now? What about my office chair, my office setup? What about a portion of my phone line, even my electrical bill? And that's what they're talking about in Portugal with this law.
Well, and if you, I'm not an accountant, but I know plenty of accountants, and CRA has made, at least in Canada, CRA has made allowances for employers to outfit their employees working remotely and to be able to compensate, put that in a tax effective manner. You look at your policies and procedures, they have now accommodated those sorts of things. But I'm really, I think I said this to you, I'm really on the fence about Ontario coming down with that law, because what happens if I'm an employer who's just getting stuff done because that's the way I'm doing, I'm just getting things off my desk, but I don't have any expectation that my employees should answer it. And I have perhaps shared that message out to say, listen, if you get something from me on the weekend, just ignore it, or after hours. But if that employee's as well getting things off their desk so they can perhaps take a half day on Wednesday, who's at fault there?
Right. Yeah. And again, it goes back to communication, right, Lori? Like I talk all the time to my clients and in my talks about how you need to have this conversation and set expectations. Is it okay to text or email an employee on the weekend? And if so, what are your expectations around a response? If I get an email from my boss on a Saturday morning, do I have to answer it now? Or is my boss expecting an answer by the time the weekend is over? And depending on the situation, of course, yes, maybe it is, because it's an emergency, right?
If you're a tow company, all right?
Yeah.
So well, you're a tow company, and your business is based on having calls come in 24/7, but your hours are listed as this with that caveat. You know, like I see that there will be some issues on that.
I rant and rave in one of my programs about this idea of values versus rules. And this idea is the more rules we have, the more regulation we have, the uglier it gets. Because what a rule tries to do is a rule tries to get to every possible contingency, right? I'll make a rule. And by the way, where do rules come from? Rules come from someone screwing up. So we have the Mikey rule, right? Because Mikey messed up, and usually they don't even address Mikey, they just make the rule. And you can think of, like, in sports or in anything, they actually refer to it as the Mikey rule, like based on the person it happened to, right? And so what they do is they try to get to every contingency, which is on the third Tuesday of an odd month with a left-handed driver, you cannot make a right turn. And you go, where the heck did this come from? It's because...
Is that your impersonation of how a boss talks, Sanjay? I really like that.
I don't know.
Like a bureaucrat?
Boss, so.
That's very good. I really like that. Yeah, so 100 people get penalized because Mikey screwed up.
Right. And so rather than going to the rules, because this is what it is, it says you cannot address your employees during that's a rule. That's stupid. What we want to get to is the value. What's the value? The value is the spirit of the rule in which you're trying to get people to buy into. So the value is don't interfere with your employees' personal time. That's the value. And if you want to create a rule for every one of that, it says, oh, on these hours and on these days, and if this is the holiday, it's a mess, and you're going to have 1 bazillion rules.
It goes back to the line I use all the time: when policy fails, try thinking.
Right.
Right. One size does not fit at all, and that goes back to culture again, right? Because one thing I've certainly noticed when I've gone into companies all over the world and researched their culture, the stronger a culture is, the stronger their values are defined, the stronger they're living their culture out loud, the less rules and policy they tend to have.
And that's exactly right, though. Culture is not about rules. Culture is value. And by the way, Carol makes a really good point here. She says, I love Gmail's delay sending. So you can actually write your emails. If you want to do it to 2 in the morning on Saturday, because that's when you're inspired to do it, you can hit them so they go out 8 o'clock Monday morning.
See, I should have done that with you, Lori. I sent Lori an email on Sunday morning and then felt guilty. I was going to leave it. I was going to send it on Monday morning, and then I thought, oh, I'll clear it off but I wrote in the email, I hope you're not reading this until Monday, right?
and I didn't read it until Monday. But you get into that mental health side of things. I think Carol had mentioned this as well. So again, put the other hat on when you say, if it's a rule, how is it being applied? So now I'm one of those that, if I'm getting things done, Outlook does have that delayed feature. And now if I have to send a series of emails, all of a sudden my employee is being bombarded at 8:05 on Monday morning with 26 emails from me. And now what it looks like is that I'm shouting at her. It looks like I'm like, do it, right? Like, so
really,
yeah. It's a matter of knowing your employees too, right? Like, this is the communication piece. And by the way, along the idea of sort of the delayed reaction, have you ever had a conversation with Michael Kerr?
Don't do it. Don't. What do you mean delayed reaction? What are you talking about? Well, I just read something too about mental health and emails, about how there is this also the reverse issue that happens when we send out an email and then we don't get a response, especially if it's to a boss, to a manager, and that takes up a little mental. There's a little mental, nudge in our part of our brain that eats at us, sometimes falling asleep, and we wonder, why hasn't this person gotten back to me? So there's all these.
You said 2 o'clock. Are you referring in the afternoon or in the morning?
In your case, like, Sanjay, reasonable. Either.
No, but you're talking about a reasonable time frame. But you know what? That's human psyche. Like, we do that. You send an email to a romantic interest and they don't send it back, and you go 2 sides. You go, oh, they're not interested, or oh, they want to find the right time to send a thoughtful email. And you can play head games with yourself all you want, and that's not on the sender. That's on the receiver. Right. So if you have reasonable expectations, especially if they're laid out up front, that says, hey, look it. When I'm inspired to send an email, I send an email. Sometimes it's 4 in the morning and sometimes it's 4 in the afternoon. You respond when it's appropriate to respond, right? And that's it. Like, and if you don't want to respond, turn off your phone or don't check your email.
Well, the difference between having a guideline and a culture, as opposed to setting it down as that stick.
A rule versus a value. A rule versus a value. That's
pick up pick up the phone. Look I even have an old-fashioned one.
Oh,
MICKEYMO. Hey, we're running out of time here, so I want to get to another really, really important subtopic in all of this with Lori, and that is as employees, as organizations are making the shift back into in-person office space, as some are, what are some of the issues that are coming up? What are some of the challenges? What are companies doing, or what do they need to do? What do leaders need to do to help people feel safe and comfortable when that return back to the workspace happens?
I'm going to challenge you to get that word out of your
which word? Back? The word back?
Back.
When they go forward to the workspace.
the start where we are and move forward and recreate and be a leader. That's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing a lot of leaders emerge and saying, listen, you know what, you're buzzing me out. And I know my staff, I know my people, I know my customer. Remember, we have to be customer focused if we want our employees to be customer focused. So this is what our customers need. This is what you need. Let's work together. Let's have a conversation and see how best to roll that out. And that's what I'm starting to see emerge. And those are going to be the folks that are going to be cream of the crop. And we're going to go, how did they do that? They did it through setting those expectations, in my opinion.
Right. For sure. Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. We need people to step up like leaders like never before. But what are you hearing anything, Lori, in terms of what are the top of mind? I mean, there's probably some obvious ones, right? If I'm going back to a workspace, I'm going to be wondering about the vaccine mandate protocols. Are my coworkers vaccinated or not? Am I working in close quarters with this coworker who I've seen on social media?
Open up a bit of a can of worms here, because I think that I hope we can stop the divisiveness between are you or aren't you, and threatening people's livelihood with that. So I'm seeing a lot of people that are again just saying that this is how we're rocking and rolling. When you're on site, you need to be in the mask if you're going to be in close proximity. If you're going to be seeing a customer, be aware that these are the expectations. So I'm seeing a lot of that, but I am seeing a lot more communication, and that's a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
And I think one of the keys too is to understand that you, especially as a leader within an organization, you have to be adaptable to what's important to you as much as what's important to the team. Like, for example, I hate wearing masks, and I'm assuming most people do. It's annoying, it's frustrating, I hate it, but I do it. Why? Not so much for me, but for other people, because that's the expectation. If you go to someone's house and they want you to take off your shoes, you take off your shoes, even if you wear your shoes in your own house, right? So I think that a lot of times we need to approach this from the other person's or the organizational point of view, kind of going, what is beneficial here for the team, not necessarily what's my own, soapbox. Again, my friend of mine he was actually a president of Pepsi in Canada, and then he moved down to the States and took on a big job. And he said one of the big things he noticed during the COVID thing is the difference between Canadians and Americans, and that was how he worded it. And it's not just them and us, or Canadians and Americans, but he said is one of them emphasized rights and the other emphasized values. Yeah. So it's my right to do this, it's my right to do that. And fair enough, it may very well be your right, but is that of the best value for you and your team? And I think approaching it from that perspective, going, what is best for my customers? Wear a mask. Okay, then wear a freaking mask. I mean, it's that simple. You may have personal choices that you want to do or not do. Fantastic. But if you're part of the team here, and that's, again, goes to what does part of the team mean? What is the culture of this organization? How do we support the team? How do we help one another? But still, you can still be an individual within that framework.
Yeah, and you see this play out, I think, in different countries as well, whether you are a more collectivist culture of a country versus individualist country, right?
Suspend the judgment. I think that's the underlying message, is it not? Is we need to suspend our judgment based on our politics or based on our own viewpoints, and start looking, being Canadian again, and start looking at the values of the whole.
And then the other thing too is, if someone is, anti-vaccination and anti-mask and all that stuff, it's so easy to cheat the system, right? I can show you a little QR code. What are you scanning it? No one scans it. There's no enforcement. What my point is, we kind of need to be vigilant and trust people that they're going to make smart decisions, because it's not as though just because they have a mandate that people aren't squeezing through the cracks here. I mean, it's so easy to cheat the system. And then in Ontario, for example, last publicly said, and I'm sure it's changed, but as of March 28th, which I remember because it's my birthday, as of March 28th in Ontario, our Premier, Doug Ford, has said that, he hopes that at that point, everything's back to normal, which means no more vaccine passports, no more masks in public places, no more required to get a vaccination and what have you. And so the reason I'm pointing that out is because if you are trying to avoid the system, you just hold your breath till March 28th. You just hide in your hole. And so what I'm saying, it's a very easy thing to bypass. So what we need to do is create an environment and a culture where people feel safe, people feel individual, they're like they're an individual, but at the same time, they're still part of something bigger, and we're looking out for one another, regardless of that personal choice.
I like where you're going with this. It brings me to mind to say, is the answer to make people feel wanted instead of the push away and the separation that we've had the last couple of years? Is it not the time to say, I want you. I want you as my client. I want you as my employee. I want to move forward with you.
It's the 4-letter F word. This is why. Fear. People are scared, and rightfully so. And because we are, as human beings, emotional creatures, if we get emotional, we make different decisions than if we're doing them rational.
Yeah.
And that's not good or bad or right or wrong. That's just an observation. So if people are fearful, if I go, Lori, you're not vaccinated and you may come near my kids and make me sick, make them sick, I'm concerned about that. So I'm going to react very differently. So, I mean, yeah, it's an ongoing conversation. And as I understand it too, and I'm not a historian on this, but the plague, there was never a cure for the plague. It just came here, wiped out a bunch of people and disappeared.
Well, it's still there. The bubonic plague still exists. It's not
essentially. I mean,
No, I get what you're saying. I'm just, but it is a good example, right? It never did go away.
Right, and the same thing even with SARS. But from 2003, this is supposed to be SARS on steroids. Is the pattern continues until it doesn't?
Yeah.
Right.
And without a doubt, this is an incredibly complex, tricky topic to navigate. I was speaking to a room full of CEOs recently, and every single one of them said it is the most divisive issue they've ever had to deal with. And they're wrestling with it, right? And of course, top of mind for all of us should be at the top of the pyramid here, I would hope, would be the health and wellness of all of our employees and everybody taking that under consideration. And to just wrap this around, because we have to close things down, it all goes back to communication, right? Communicating about all of this, talking about people's fears, getting this out in the open, talking about your protocols, talking about why some people do get to still work from home if people are a little jealous that they don't get to, or vice versa. Talking about the lessons that you've learned from people working from home. What worked well for them? If some people were way more productive working from home, then let's have that conversation and figure out what was making them so productive, and let's figure out how we can bring that forward in our culture. And instead of going forward to a normal, Lori, let's reimagine a more inspiring, rocking workplace than ever before.
Absolutely. When you communicate, move forward. Communicate, move forward.
When you say big time decisive, are we talking like even a bigger issue than like milk versus dark chocolate? Because that's
come on. Dark chocolate, Sanjay.
No.
I'm not an animal. It's got to be dark chocolate.
You are an animal if you think it's dark. Good.
In fact, on that note, it is official Take a Hike Day, and we have the most epic, like in walking distance from my house, the most epic chocolatier here, Le Chocolatier, who makes custom chocolate, and our favorite chocolate bar is Take a Hike Chocolate Day. Look at how I wrapped all that together, huh? To me, it's just...
Master.
Hey, Lori, we have to wrap things up. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's always so much fun. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Lori. Thank you, Sanjay. Thank you so much for your insight, your wisdom. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today with your incredible comments and questions and insights. We learned so much from you as well, so thank you for that. I want to remind everybody that every other Wednesday, you can bring us into your organization and to interview different people from your organization, to customize an event specifically with your issues, your questions, your topics in mind. So think about that. And Sanjay, when are the folks going to see us again?
December 1st.
December 1st?
December 1st. Or if you prefer, November 31st.
31st or the 1st of December. Yes, December. It'll be a December kickoff show. So hopefully we will see you all in 2 weeks. I wish everybody a safe... What do I wish them? safe travel, safe experience, safe life, safe work.
Great conversations. That's what I wish.
Yes, good conversations.
We will see you every other Wednesday. And we didn't play our music.
Oh, we forgot. Oh no, this is tragic, Sanjay. Oh
Let's
man.
do it all over. Everyone, you get an extra 45 minutes. Let's do it again.
We'll stop. We'll start over from the beginning. Yeah. Oh, you have to come back next week just for the music in 2 weeks. You have to come back for that. All right.
All right.
Thank you, everyone.
Teaser. We did it on purpose.
Yeah. All right. Good luck as everybody
Thanks,
moves
everyone.
forward, Lori.
They do move forward.
Bye, all.
Bye, folks.
Thanks again.